How's it going, everyone? We're going to get started now. So good evening. My name is Jack Duggan, and Pete, and you can hear me, right? While we're going through this. Okay, awesome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jack Duggan. I'm the Deputy Director of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm here to facilitate the statutorily required cannabis community outreach. This is an application by Beacon Compassion, Inc., doing business as HiFive, to expand the operations of its previously permitted medical to incorporate adult use marijuana retail sales to be operated at the address of 1524 VFW Parkway. Before we start, I'd like to go over my expectations for tonight's meeting. Having participated in a couple of these meetings of this kind, I know that this can be a sensitive topic. I want to make it clear that no decisions are being made tonight, and at no time will it be acceptable to be disrespectful to anyone during the meeting. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. There are no right or wrong opinions. We're here tonight to try to collect as many comments and questions for this proposal. I'm not here to facilitate debates amongst neighbors or relitigate state legislation. I ask that all questions be directed toward the applicant and myself only. The applicant will answer all questions related to their proposal to the best of their ability, and I'll answer all questions specific to the city's process. If I'm unable or the applicants are unable to answer a question tonight, we will follow up with you after the meeting to get that information to you. This is an open comment period, meaning that if you do not get called on tonight, or if you think of questions that have not been answered, all you need to do is reach out to us, and we will work to get you that information. My contact information has been included on the flyer you received to attend this meeting. There will be no questions during the presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, I will reiterate my expectations. And just to reiterate, this is not a debate on the legalization or morality of marijuana. That debate occurred at the ballot box, and we're here today because it was overwhelmingly supported in the city. The applicant will go through the presentation in a timely manner, and the remainder of the time will be for orderly Q&A. Thank you again for taking the time to participate in tonight's meeting. I'll now hand it over to the applicants for the presentation. All right, so Pete, I'm going to share. All right, Pete, you should be able to share now.
Okay, great. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you, and we can see that.
All right, great. Let me just put this in presentation mode. So great. Thank you, Jack, for that. And for the folks joining us on the call this evening, I just want to take a quick minute to introduce myself. My name is Pete D'Agostino. I'm a consultant for Beacon Compassion, been working with them for a few years now in the city. Joining me tonight is Steve Angelo, Rena Cometti, Ben Bodemer, and Chad Wise. Ben and Chad and Rena and Steve are all been associated with Beacon Compassion for quite some time now, and are probably familiar to some of you already. So we want to just take an opportunity to introduce those folks to you. Tonight's presentation will take you through a couple of different things. We will do all the things the CCC requires and the city requires us to cover. And then additionally, because we're already in the neighborhood, and this is an update to what we're doing in the neighborhood, we also put some timeline information and some other information in the presentation just for the neighbors who have kind of been tracking this over the last couple of years. So with that, Jack, if you're good, I'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, that sounds good, Pete. Thank you.
So I know we have some folks joining us by phone. Unfortunately, they're not able to see the screen. So if you would bear with me, we do regulatorily have to put out all this information. So I am going to unfortunately have to read through the slides because we're required to make sure we present all the information by the Cannabis Control Commission. So the folks joining us for the phone, they'll be able to hear the slides while the other folks will see them. And I'll try not to belabor any points as to not make it overly painful while somebody reads to you. So this is a community outreach meeting for Beacon Compassion, Inc., DBA HiFive, which is proposing to open a medical marijuana treatment center and adult use marijuana retail facility at 1524 VFW Parkway, West Roxbury. The project's already received a license from the Boston Cannabis Board and approval from the Boston Zoning Board of Appeals for its medical marijuana license. HiFive is currently with the Boston Planning and Development Authority and the Inspectional Services Division for building permitting. So that's all related to our medical. The proposed adult use marijuana retailer must still complete a host community agreement with the city and go through licensing with the Boston Cannabis Board. And then additionally, HiFive will go through state licensing process with the Cannabis Control Commission for both medical and adult use licenses. So to Jack's point earlier, certainly, still a lot of steps and a lot of public input along the way. This is just one of the steps in the process. As a retail store, HiFive will not constitute a nuisance to the community. There's no cultivation or manufacturing activities that will occur at this location, and it operates much like a regular retail facility. There will not be any outside equipment beyond a normal retail store, so there will not be any more noise than any other retailer in the area. And additionally, because it's only retail, there will not be any additional odor coming from the facility that could be detected from an adjacent property. Just for the folks, and I apologize to the folks joining us by phone, I'll do my best to get through the timeline, but I'll just do some high-level stuff. This property was first secured back in November of 2016. We met with the West Roxbury Neighborhood Council and gave them a presentation, back in January of 17. Subsequently, we met with the VFW Parkway Trailer Park Association, the Main Streets Meeting, the West Roxbury Civic Association, Charles River Spring Valley. So quite a bit. And that was all during 2017. Subsequent to that, we went to the Boston City Council subcommittee and then eventually the Boston City Council, in which Beacon Compassion received a unanimous letter of non-opposition from the City Council for its medical marijuana use. We filed with Inspectional Services in 2018 and went through the refusal process, filed the ZBA appeal, which was in 2019. 2020, we got a letter of support from Councilor O'Malley, and I just want to be clear, that was for medical only. Boston's Cannabis Board approved this location also in September 2020, again for medical only. And then ZBA approval for our medical license was in 2021. The Boston Cannabis Board meeting was in October. This is tonight's meeting. It's the Boston Cannabis Board meeting for medical and adult use, which is tonight. The next steps will be a West Roxbury Neighborhood Council presentation on 10/26, and then the Boston Cannabis Board sometime after that. Obviously, we put in a projection of sometime in January. Obtaining our medical license from the state also in January, and we anticipate opening medical in February, and then attaining adult use licensing, assuming this all goes through. So this is a little bit forward-looking, just to give people a sense of what the timing might be, would be in March-ish, and then opening sometime around April. So that's just a broad overview. And I just say, well, these are some of the highlighted meetings. There were multiple conversations and meetings with some of these groups several times. So this is just kind of high-level overview of the engagement with the neighborhood over the last several years. Most of the folks are probably familiar with the 1524 VFW Parkway. So if you remember, if you're able to see my screen and the folks joining us by phone, you'll remember those stairs that kind of go up the middle of the building. And then to the left and right of those stairs are another set of stairs that go down into the basement. So that was the original proposed location, was down in the basement. We'd gotten some feedback from the ZBA that they would like to see a ground level location. We were able to work with the landlord and move into the old yoga studio. So for the folks looking at the picture, it's the purple area to the left of the liquor store. And for the folks familiar with the area, again, it's on the left end of the same contiguous building. So this is part of this meeting is to kind of show the change in the part of the building that we'll be operating in. This is just an overview of the site, which most folks are familiar with. We're on VFW Parkway. Then for the folks joining us by phone, this is what we're showing is a little bit of a floor plan. I'll do my best to walk you through it. You'll come into the middle of the store, essentially just where the entry is now. Security would be on your left, where they would check IDs. Once you enter the facility, after your ID and your medical card are checked, there's a restroom to the left. There's a sales floor in front of you. And then there's a point of sale area kind of towards the back of the store, much like you would expect to see in any retail business. The exit is to the right of the building as you're looking at it, or the left of the building as you're exiting. And then behind the point of sale area would be the offices, the vault, shipping and receiving, an employee break area, and order fulfillment area. So pretty straightforward, very secure. We'll get more into security, but the public is all kept in this retail sales floor area, and doesn't have any access to the back of the facility. One of the things that we talk about in the medical marijuana, and for the folks that have been part of our presentations in the past, this is just kind of reconfirmation that we'll still be providing, still have a plan for patients with financial hardship for medical marijuana. So again, I just got to read this to the folks joining up by phone. Beacon Compassion will provide medical marijuana at reduced cost when an individual is in receipt of Mass Health, a supplemental security income, or individual's income does not exceed 300% of the federal poverty level adjusted for family size. Beacon Compassion will provide price lists for marijuana, marijuana-infused products and other available products, and alternate discounted below market price lists for patients with documented verified financial hardship. Beacon Compassion shall post notice of its medical marijuana treatment center and marijuana establishment advising customers of the financial hardship program so they're aware of it, and advising customers to ask a sales representative for additional information. All dispensary agents will be trained to provide the discounts in accordance with the regulations, which is 935 CMR 501 and relevant mass statutes. Beacon Compassion will conduct an annual review to identify the number of patients with documented verified financial hardship who purchased or received marijuana or marijuana products from the medical marijuana treatment center and the establishment, and identify the total cumulative savings to all patients with documented verified financial hardship due to the availability of discounted or free marijuana or marijuana products. So this is a lot of words that say that, you know, the state has a program that Beacon's participating in that will provide medical marijuana to people who meet certain financial thresholds. So we think that's a good thing to do. Jumping into security. Again, I apologize for the folks that can see this, but I will read through it. Security is an important matter for HiFive. Security goes well beyond the placement of cameras and other physical security measures. Security includes engagement with the community, the police and fire departments, and most importantly, engagement with our team members. HiFive has incorporated security into many of the company policies in one way or another. HiFive is committed to our physical security, our security policies, including team member engagement and the company's engagement with the community and local law enforcement. HiFive's incorporated the following policies into the operation of our facility in order to address security and the prevention of diversion. So all of these policies listed include some aspect of security in one way or another, and happy to take questions on this at the end. We can certainly come back to it, but those policies generally are security, our prevention of diversion of marijuana to minors or the illicit market, restricting access to age 21 or older for adult use, obviously, or to a patient if it's a medical patient, retail dispensing procedures, personnel policies, marijuana storage, and transportation on-site deliveries both to and from the marijuana establishment. Plan for on-site security personnel. Our on-site security team shall be sufficient to address all security needs at the proposed location, including but not limited to screen all individuals prior to entering the facility to ensure they have a valid ID and valid patient registration card. All outside vendors, contractors, and visitors must obtain a visitor ID badge prior to entering the facility and must be escorted at all times. Ensure the safety of all employees and customers, deter theft, prevent unauthorized access to restricted areas, prevent loitering outside of the proposed location, which is an important one to us, ensuring no use of marijuana outside the proposed location, so you cannot consume marijuana in or around our facility, and keeping all locks and security equipment properly maintained in good working order. That's our on-site security, and our plan for our building and product security. Policies and procedures for building security will be in strict accordance with 935 CMR 501-110, 5A through G, as well as 935 CMR 500-1-10, 5A through G. They're the same paragraphs, different regulations. One, just so everybody's clear, the 501 regulation is medical and the 500 regulation is adult use. Security system to prevent and detect diversion, theft, or loss of unauthorized intrusion into the facility. Security system maintained in a secure location to prevent theft, loss, destruction, or alteration to the data. A backup alarm system, limited access to the surveillance area. List of authorized employees and service personnel with access to the surveillance area. Proper maintenance and testing of the security system, not to exceed 30 days, and proper maintenance of the exterior landscape to prevent someone from concealing themselves from sight. And these are all things that we're committed to doing and are also elements of the regulations. So one of the things we spend a lot of time talking about is prevention of diversion or diversion prevention, depending on how you think of it. We adopted what we call the SMART approach, which is separation, marketing, access control, reporting, and training. So when we talk about separation, I'll read this for the folks joining us by phone, but I want to put it in layman's terms. If you think of separation and access control kind of go hand in hand a little bit, but I'll explain it in layman's terms. If you think of a bank, the folks that would be out doing mortgages or customer service or working at a desk outside of the teller area, those folks wouldn't have access to the teller's drawer or anything the teller's doing because they don't have a need for it. And then those folks and the teller may not necessarily have access to the vault because they don't have a need for it. So much in the way that banks separate job duties with access to money, cannabis businesses across the Commonwealth do it in the exact same way, quite frankly. People on the sales floor may not have access to the register, and those two groups combined may not necessarily have access to the order fulfillment or vault. So it all depends on what the person's doing that day. And what's interesting about that is me as Pete, I might have access to the vault on a day that I'm doing that job, but I wouldn't have access to a vault on the day I'm working on the floor. So those are very different jobs, and the access is based on the job for that day. So just to take you through it, for the folks that can't see this, the policies and procedures will be implemented, this is for separation, to reflect a separation of duties where there are overlapping processes for diversion risk, ensure that chain of custody and individual accountability are maintained and verified at all times. And that's just a fancier way of saying the example I just gave you. Our marketing, of course, will be in accordance with the CMR 500, 935 CMR 500, and 501, both sections 105, 4A, and 5, which is we will engage in reasonable marketing, advertising, and branding practices that are not otherwise prohibited and that do not jeopardize the public health, welfare, or safety of the general public or promote the diversion of marijuana or marijuana use to individuals younger than 21 years old. That's something that the Cannabis Control Commission has really got figured out and will certainly comply with all those requirements. Access controls in accordance, again, with CMR 500 and 501, Section 110, which is the security section for both adult use and medical, respectively. We will store all products in a secure, locked safe or vault in such a manner as to prevent diversion, theft, or loss. If diversion is detected, we will secure all product and conduct an assessment to determine whether additional safeguards are necessary. There's quite a bit of reporting about that, which is what goes into our next item here, which is reporting, again, in accordance with the regulations 500 and 501.105. HiFive will document and report any unusual discrepancy in inventory to the Commission and law enforcement authorities not more than 24 hours after the discovery. And then finally, and probably one of the more important ones, is training, which is in accordance with 935 CMR 500 and 501, sections 105. HiFive will require employees to complete annual training on all aspects of their jobs, including diversion prevention, prevention of sales to minor, and best practices to detect and respond to incidents of possible diversion. So that is our security and diversion prevention section. A little bit unique to this situation, we do have some community feedback and public meetings and so forth that we've had over the years. I think we covered a lot of this in the timeline, but again, all the civic groups and associations, neighborhood council, we've met with those folks, certainly with the mayor's office, state reps and senators back in 2017 when we were first doing this, the Boston City Council Subcommittee and the full council, as well as the Boston Cannabis Board. And obviously, as you all can tell, we're working with Office of Neighborhood Services for the purposes of this meeting. So we've just kind of summarized all of that engagement that we've been doing over the last couple of years. And then I think this is the final one before we get to Q&A, which is really what we're here for. I think Jack said it when he opened. The most important part of this meeting is trying to get to all your questions and comments and make sure we're addressing those as best we can. So we'll get to that right after this. So when we talk about our community impact and our partnership, our goal is to be a good partner to the community, working with local government, law enforcement, and area businesses to enhance the neighborhood. We intend to create a positive economic impact beneficial to both the city of Boston and the neighborhood. For security, through our own security measures, we will prevent on-site diversion and working with the Boston Police and area businesses, utilizing our existing security measures to provide enhanced benefits to the neighborhood where possible. And that's something that a lot of cannabis businesses are doing very well at with local police departments and area businesses. It's been very beneficial for both. And then the dialogue, which is the whole purpose of this meeting, and really the part that we're just about to get to, is that we're committed to a continued dialogue. We've had a pretty open dialogue with the neighborhood for the last 4 years, and this is just another step in that. We're committed to that continued dialogue with the city of Boston and the neighborhood to foster a mutually beneficial, healthy, and safe partnership. And further, as an adult use marijuana retail establishment, we will provide information and education about our products. On that one point, I'll make another one. On the medical marijuana, we do consultation. That's a requirement of the state. And on the adult use, we provide information and education, which can be done in multiple forms. We could have potentially some kind of learning event that somebody could come to, certainly in the form of handouts and other materials that we would provide to customers. And then one-on-one consultation with employees working on the sales floor. So, which really goes back to our training that we talked about earlier. So with all that, Jack, I know I ran through it kind of quickly, but I really know a lot of these folks have heard this from us before. We've been before the neighborhood for quite some time, and I thought it was important to really get to the questions and answers as quickly as possible. So with that, sir, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. And for those on the call, I'm going to leave Pete with the ability to share if you want to refer back to one of the slides. But you know, we have several people on the call, so I'm just going to go one by one, unmute you, call your name, and you'll ask your questions. I do want to say that the meeting is being recorded, though, and will be uploaded. So I believe it's just one person on their phone. You know, I will be able to, I can connect with you, and my information's on the flyer you received. If you want to reach out to me, I can get you the link to this if you'd like to see this meeting recording. But for now, Larry Costello, how's it going? You've been unmuted.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
Do you have any questions or anything?
thanks for the presentation. The only question I have is really nothing to do with all of the stuff you talked about, but
Okay.
seems to me like this could be a very popular store, and there's not a lot of parking there. Are you concerned at all that you know, you'll have cars backed up onto the parkway?
Was that Larry Costello that was talking?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, Larry. I apologize. I didn't hear the name. Yes, sir. So we're not concerned about that for a lot of reasons, but I'll give you a kind of the higher points, and then we can dive into them to the extent you want to. Probably one of the beneficial things that came out of the pandemic was the Cannabis Control Commission responded pretty robustly. And I don't know if you remember this, but the governor actually shut down marijuana businesses initially in response to the pandemic as to prevent any lines. So the idea would be that since people weren't at work, they might spend more time at a cannabis establishment. And then after a couple of weeks, he opened them back up as things settled down, and the CCC was able to get their feet under them a little bit as to how they were going to respond. And they did a lot of good things. Some of the things they've done, like that really are still here today, probably the biggest advancement the industry took was an online ordering system, if you will. So I will give you an example. One of the apps is called Dutchie. It's a fairly well-known app. There's probably other platforms as well. And what those allow is for customers to, say, for example, they know they're going to the store that day. They would go onto the app, whichever platform it might be. I just offered that one as an example. And they would be able to see our menu for the day, or our inventory, if you think of it that way. And they would be able to pre-place their orders. And then when they come to the store, their medical card or ID would be checked, depending on what they're there for. And once that was confirmed and verified, they'd be allowed to go in the store. They would pick up their order and they would leave. Their ID and medical cards checked again when they pick up their order, so it's checked twice. But so interestingly enough, I've been doing cannabis now in Massachusetts since 2012, and pre-pandemic, we used to plan about 15 minutes per customer. And currently, traffic engineers are using 4 to 7 minutes per customer. Because what we're finding is that a very high percentage, and in some cases as much as 80% of the customers, are pre-ordering. They do it, at the end of their day, and then on their way home, pick it up. And so that's what we're really seeing as a trend. So it's had a very positive, significant impact in reducing any kind of queuing outside of the store or cars backing up, so on and so forth. And then, so when you think of that and the number of spaces over there, we could be doing quite a bit of volume of customers per hour, much more than we think we're going to do, as we open this business. So we really don't think that the parking, given kind of the dynamic and how the industry's responded and continues to operate, that's going to be a problem for us.
And the pre-ordering, you can do that for adult use as well as medical.
Yes, through the app. Yep.
All right, thanks.
Hey, Pete. Hey, Pete, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Ben. To Larry's question specifically, and actually that's a point we discussed with the landlord, just for your benefit. You might not know this, Pete. This was an update and a beneficial change to the lease. We specifically actually negotiated employee parking in the rear of the building, right? So essentially an update to the use of that space that's out back to facilitate increased access to more customer parking in the front. We also actually negotiated some designating specific customer pickup areas to facilitate faster throughput from a customer perspective. So we actually worked with the landlord to do a couple of additional things on top of those efficiencies that you're talking about. So we're pretty optimistic that all those things are, cumulatively a very positive benefit.
Great, thank you.
Larry, any other questions?
Nope, thank you.
All right, thank you. Lisa Ferreira, you've been unmuted. Do you have any questions?
I didn't have a question, except my house is just above the back of the building, so having a parking lot in the back is not great information for me. That's all. I didn't have anything prepared. I didn't realize that had been discussed, but I can hear absolutely everything that happens down there. Dumpster, anybody in their cars. My house is right above, so that would alter my living, I would say, in terms of noise.
Okay. Can you guys expand maybe on the hours of operation or something, and to be cognizant of that, if this were to happen with the parking in the rear?
Yeah, my understanding that was for
extremely
employees.
important. It is. It's employees only, and actually, it's only to the extent there's no interference with the existing access to the dumpster. So, candidly, that's an important factor to think about in working through those specific details with the landlord. So I'm glad that we're aware of that, as we've not specifically identified where any of that might go. And candidly, if that's a more important consideration, we should think through all that. So that I certainly think that's important to know.
Yeah, Lisa, that was really good feedback. And again, to the extent we use that parking back there, it would just be for employees coming and going to their shift. So it shouldn't be, a constant barrage of vehicles to the extent we have that. And to Ben's point, knowing that you're back there, we'll take a look at what area behind the building we'll utilize that will minimize that impact to you. So we'll take a look at that as well as we move forward with it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because every Thursday morning, 4 a.m., they empty that dumpster and we're up every single time. So.
Whether you want it or not, right?
Yeah, so it's
God bless you.
The noise just comes right up, and there's been some instances just with the liquor store down there with some people hanging out in the back that's kind of troubling. But yeah, thank you.
No, appreciate it, definitely.
Thank you, Lisa.
And one thing I will say, Lisa, is these places are fairly well cameraed. My guess would be people may be less inclined to drink behind the building when there's cameras going to be back there. Certainly, our security wouldn't allow people to loiter that are our customers. I guess we can't necessarily control other people's customers, but just having additional lighting and cameras, that monitor the back of the building, hopefully that would discourage that activity, maybe make your situation a little bit better. So, but it's good feedback. That's the kind of stuff we're here to learn. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Natalia, you've been unmuted. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
You're good? All right, thank you.
Yep.
Steven, you've been unmuted. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. For those of you not familiar with me, my name is Steve Smith. I'm president of Charles River Spring Valley Neighborhood Association. So I was there at a number of your meetings. I also sit on the West Roxbury Neighborhood Council. I attended those meetings as well as opposed, and a number of others. So I applaud you on your outreach, but let's go to the elephant that's in the room. This was a medical marijuana, and the letters of support that were sent that were referenced in your presentation all made clear that we were supportive of medical marijuana. We do not share that support in terms of an adult use part component of this. So you'll have to understand that there's going to be some hand-holding for subsequent meetings and trying to, get us to get used to this retail component that's now been added to the medical marijuana. I wanted to see if you could touch on more on something you mentioned already. Please clarify your hours of operation, and please clarify what is the separate entities of Beacon and HiFive. Are they one and the same, and you just need to have separate names that one handles the medical and one handles the retail? I just wanted some clarification on that, but I just do want to make sure clear that it should not be lost in the fact that all those letters of support were for medical use, not for retail. We actually made it clear in those letters, and I'm sure the elected officials, Councilor Malley, Representative Carpenter, Senator Walsh also made it clear at that time that it was just for medical. So you still have some hurdles to convince us that we should also in turn support a retail operation. Thank you.
Yeah, Steve, really good comments. Let me take the quick ones quickly. So on the entities, and Ben, Chad, if you could remind me of the hours of operation, I actually don't have the document open, but on the entities, Beacon Compassion is the entity. It's just a doing business as, so it's really just a branding thing. The DBA is HiFive, so it's one entity, but from a branding perspective, the branded name is HiFive, but one entity. All of the things fall under that one entity. And then on the adult use piece, Steve, and just so you know, in the event you may not have seen it on the slide, we did enumerate on our slides just for transparency that all of those letters were medical. We made sure we noted that on the slides because we didn't want to misrepresent that fact. But maybe to just give you a little bit of background, just to the extent you have it, and when you're talking to folks, you can express to them kind of why we're before the neighborhood again. You may remember back during those meetings, and we certainly remember you and remember who you are, that we said, hey, adult use isn't legal. We don't know what that looks like, but we'll certainly come back to the neighborhood before we do anything. So in part, we're doing that. More importantly, though, and what really drove the timing of this, because I think we would maybe have waited a little bit longer had we had an option, but the city has gone through now, I think from the time we met with you, Steve, we are specifically in our third set of ordinances, the most recent one being published just about 6 or 8 weeks ago. But the set of regulation, or the set of ordinances that came out before that allowed for adult use applicant to come into West Roxbury specifically, and they could have applied in the exact same building as us. So you may remember
they did. One
yeah.
did. Try
Yeah.
to do that.
They did. They went away. I'm not sure what happened to them, but they're not around anymore. But so you're aware of that. So I don't know what happened to them or why they left, but they're not around anymore. And so under the city rules, originally, you may remember there was a 2,000-foot buffer that, and West Roxbury was really pretty happy with that because they said, okay, well, if we do this medical marijuana use here, then we have a 2,000-foot buffer. And that, pretty quickly got eroded. And the current process under the city is that if you are less than 2,000 feet, anything from 0 to 1,999, all you have to demonstrate to the city is that you're providing something different than the other business. So under the current practice of the city, if an adult use operator went into the exact same building as us, brand new, never talked to West Roxbury, hasn't been part of the community for 4 years, hasn't been working on this, they just drop in an application, they would be entitled to, or not, I'm not going to say entitled. It would be possible for them to receive an adult use license in the same building, because they would make an argument that they're providing adult use marijuana and that we do not. And so the only way for us to participate in the adult use market at any point, unfortunately, was we had to move now. And in order to get in front of the neighborhood to talk about it, and the mayor's office and the Boston Cannabis Board, because if we were to put an adult use in the same building, Steve, I think one of the biggest benefits to the neighborhood is, instead of having two separate businesses, in all practical purposes, the only thing that changes is who can come in the front door. That's it. So it's still one business, one location, one footprint, one parking lot, one everything. You know who we are. And the only thing that changes is that who can come in the door. So we go from allowing medical only to allowing people over the age of 21. If we don't apply, or we're not successful in getting a local license, another applicant could come in, open in the same building or anywhere else in West Roxbury, and now you have a whole nother business, traffic pattern, customer base, the whole 9 yards. So we think consolidating these operations in one location is to the benefit of the neighborhood. We certainly hope you think that. We think there's a benefit to it. And candidly, we're committed to West Roxbury. We've been here for a long time. And we'd really like to see this through. So certainly there's a lot more discussion. There's a proposal in front of the zoning commission right now that would make the siting of these by right. And the 2,000 foot buffer stays, but again, that same exemption would apply. So there could be a whole lot of challenges down the road for the neighborhood if we didn't move forward and somebody else chose to. So I just offer that for your consideration as you guys are kind of talking about and thinking through it.
Could you all go back? It hasn't been addressed, my question on your hours of operation.
Yeah, did you guys have those? And Steve, I may have to get them to you. I just don't have the host community agreement open in front of me, and I don't want to give you the wrong thing. I would suspect, Steve, there's something like 9 to 9, somewhere around that range, but I don't want to guess too much. Can I follow up with you by email and get you the exact numbers out of the HCI?
That would be fine. I am concerned about the later end of those hours, to be honest with you.
Just so we have that feedback now, what hours?
I can't, I mean, as you say, you already have a woman on this call who's directly above that hill, which I'm quite familiar with because I live on Laureate. But
Yeah.
Maybe I think some outreach to those people who look down on that property, particularly Caledonia Ave,
Yeah.
to get feedback from them in terms of hours of operation. I think they might have concerns about the later hours. I mean, late relatively speaking, but talking about West Roxbury, this place gets kind of quieter. So some people might say 9 p.m. might be too late. I can't speak for them. I just want to address that concern.
Yep. No, we'll follow up with you on that. And I want to make sure I get you the right info. And if I remember correctly, just off the top of my head, Steve, I believe our hours are no greater than the liquor store that's in the same building, and they may be less. But I'll follow up with Jack. If you could just connect us, I'll get that answer and we'll get it to Steve tomorrow.
I just one thing I'd also like to, if we are talking 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. even, that place needs to have that parking lot area. The lighting is horrible, to be brutally honest. So that's something you need to discuss with the landlord should you go forward. The lighting needs to be improved there in the evening.
Okay, we'll definitely put that on our list to talk to the landlord about.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
And if you're on your phone, 617-323, thank you for your patience. If you have any comments, you've been unmuted, so feel free to talk now. Again, if you're on your phone and your number is 617-323, doesn't give me the last 4 digits, but you've been unmuted. So if you're on your phone and you're listening, feel free to talk now.
Jack, are you talking about me?
Oh, who's this?
It's Judy.
Oh, hey,
Katana.
Judy. Yeah. This is you. How's it going, Judy?
Okay, good, thanks, good. Yep, I only had this. I didn't have I don't know. If it was on Zoom, I didn't get the information, just the phone. No, I agree with Steve and Larry about the COTS situation and about the hours. I clearly would like to see it close at 7, but I don't know what the hours of the liquor store are that they were talking about, but I would like to see it close at 7 for the neighborhood behind them. But other than that, it seems fine to me. I don't have any other questions or
Okay.
concerns.
Thank you, Judy.
thank you.
Appreciate you hopping on.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that was Judy. And actually, it looks like Peter Favorito just hopped on as well from Councilor O'Malley's office. So, Pete, you've been unmuted. Feel free to introduce yourself and, say anything you have to say about the proposal.
Sure thing. Hey guys, sorry for the delay. We had another meeting tonight, so I just had to jump on this late. But once again, thanks, Jack. This is Peter Favorito from City Councilor Matt O'Malley's office. I'm his West Roxbury liaison. My apologies if this has already been addressed, or feel free to jump in or correct me or after I finish. But the councilor just wanted me to read something real quick, and then that should be it on my end. But Councilor O'Malley just wanted me to say he's disheartened that there could be any changes to the original proposal. It's still our position to support the medicinal usage, and if the applicant wants to make it recreational, we hope that they go through a robust community process to do so. And like I said, if that has already been addressed, feel free to let me know, but Matt just wanted me to make that comment.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks.
I don't know if you guys want to address that quickly. I think you kind of highlighted it a little.
Jack, I'll definitely jump on it. Peter, good to meet you. So we did lay out the community engagement up to this point, and I'm happy to get the PowerPoint over to you and the councilor. And then as on a go forward basis, we've done several things. So we noticed this meeting in the paper. We physically flyered the neighborhood. We sent out letters to all our direct abutters, and also both, I believe ONS, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but ONS and me personally sent letters to as many of the civic groups as I had contact information for, to remind them of this meeting. So we've done certainly more than required, which we hope to always do. But we've done a very robust engagement for this meeting, plus all our subsequent meetings. And then in addition to that, we will be meeting with the neighborhood council on October 26th. So more to come on the community engagement. And we are trying to make sure we're hitting all the markers as we go through this. So thank you for those comments.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
So that's everyone who's on the call. Everyone's had the opportunity to speak. Like I said, this meeting is being recorded. So I'm happy to share that with you once we have it uploaded and have a link for it. I see Larry's got his hand up. Let me just unmute Larry quickly. Yeah, Larry, you're unmuted.
Yeah, Jack, could you talk about the city council's resolution of a couple of months ago to make a marijuana store just a normal use in a commercial district? And it seems to me that the issue of medical versus both is going to be like irrelevant in a year or two. And I just don't know if that progressed, because it had to go to some other board. But the city council, in the name of equity and all of the stuff that they talk about these days, was just trying to make it like opening any other store. But that had to go to some other commission. Could you just clarify what that situation is?
Yeah, Larry, honestly, I'm not too familiar with all that. There's a lot of moving pieces with all this. But I mean, I'm happy to connect you with someone. I can put you in touch with the Cannabis board who may be able to provide you with more clarification on that. I'm just not comfortable speaking on it because I just don't have enough information, and I'm not sure if it's even been, solidified yet. But I'm happy to connect you with someone who can provide you with that info.
Jack, if it's appropriate, I could answer Larry's question.
Yeah, please, Pete, go for it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. So, Larry, thank you again, Pete D'Agostino. So the city council did pass a new ordinance, much in the way that you just outlined it. It is in an effort to continue to provide equity to applicants in the city of Boston. And so that ordinance has been adopted by the city council. An element of that ordinance was a change to the zoning process. So the non-zoning portion of the ordinance has already been implemented. It's just as an example, they added veterans to the mix that weren't previously in there, and some other changes. But the zoning element of the ordinance has not been implemented. What the zoning ordinance would do is it would make this use by right, but still maintain a 2,000-foot buffer. And then the 2,000-foot buffer being waived under the proposal would now be waived by the Boston Cannabis Board and not by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So under the ordinance the city council passed, the high bullets are the use would become by right for the purposes of zoning, and the 2,000-foot buffer would be waived by the Boston Cannabis Board, not the Zoning Board of Appeals. And to your point, Larry, on process, that element of the ordinance that was passed is required to go before the Zoning Commission. The Zoning Commission had their first hearing on it. There was what I'll call a robust discussion. I'm sure you can find that meeting online. And they did not come to a resolution on that proposal from the city council. And I believe, don't quote me on this last part, I'm confident in everything I told you up to that point. I'll say they moved it forward. I'm not sure if they set a meeting date for the next meeting on that, Larry. So that's maybe the only piece of it I don't know is exactly when they'll bring it up again. But it got pushed forward to a future meeting to revisit it. So that is before the Zoning Commission, and should they adopt it, that would immediately become the rule because the city council already passed it.
Yeah, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at this as if the powers that be were to make you stick with medical only, because that was the plan 5 years ago, we're going to quickly end up with 2 marijuana establishments instead of 1.
Yes,
And
you
so-
would.
and so-
Even under the current rules, that would happen.
So to
yes.
me, it seems like I don't have a problem going with adult recreational and medical, because I think it, for the community, I think 1 is better than 2 right now. And who knows, 5 years from now, we may have 5, but for now, restricting you to medical is just inviting another one to come in who, given the latest actions of the city council, will just get approved pretty easily. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And I'm just trying to have someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, the zone, I just don't want to leave you with the wrong impression. The zoning piece of that new ordinance has not been implemented. However, under the current rules, if we do not open adult use, another applicant could apply for the same building or another building in West Roxbury, and they would be able to make an argument to the Boston Cannabis Board that they do not have to comply with the 2,000-foot buffer because they are offering something different than us. And the Zoning Board of Appeals has already previously granted those variances to other applicants where they went into an area within 2,000 feet of somebody else. So the current practice of the ZBA is certainly not to just, I don't want to leave you with the impression they approve whatever's before them, certainly not. But they have, and in fact, there are businesses operating within 2,000 feet of each other, one being medical and one being adult use. So even without the zoning amendment that we were just discussing being implemented, it's still the practice of the city, or I won't say the practice, there's still an opportunity for somebody to go through the process and be sitting right down the street from us. Yes. So you could have.
But you say the zoning part hasn't been implemented. It hasn't been implemented yet.
It hasn't been implemented yet, but my point was Yeah,
I-
even
I
without
understand
that, there's
I understand your point. My question is, it hasn't been rejected, right? It just
Correct.
hasn't been implemented yet.
correct. That's true. Yes.
Right,
That's
okay.
right. Yeah.
You all
Right.
set, Larry?
Yeah, well, all set. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, so that's everyone who was on the attendee list. So all of you've spoken. As I was wrapping up beforehand, this meeting is being recorded, and I'm happy to provide that to you. I want to thank you all for coming out. Unless Pete or anyone else has any further comments. If not, we can wrap this up. And as we've mentioned a couple times tonight, in a couple weeks on October 26th, the West Roxbury Neighborhood Council will be hosting this group to run through the proposal as well. So it's another opportunity to hear this presentation, and if any questions or anything comes up, you can bring it up there. Or like I said, my information's on the flyer. Feel free to reach out to me if something comes up that you didn't think of tonight. You can get in touch with me, and I'm happy to connect you with whoever to get you the information you're looking for. So thanks again for coming out tonight. Thank you, Pete, and the rest of the team for the presentation. And have a good night, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great night.